Welcome to Forgotten History. I'm Gunnar.
I'm Sunil.
And I'm Dean.
Today, we're going to talk about the First Chechen War.
The First Chechen War it had started in 1994, and it was between the Chechens and the Russians.
Chechnya is a republic located in the Caucasus with a southern border with Georgia and Russia surrounds it in all other directions. It is comparable in size to New Jersey.
Chechnya had a population of 1.3 million people at the beginning of the war. In the center of Chechnya is Grozny, which is its capital city, and that has a population of 400,000 at the start of the war. The war was so devastating that not only did Grozny become the most destroyed city in the world, but by the end of the war, its population had dropped to less than 70,000.
Going into history of the situation,
in 1859, Chechnya was conquered by Russia, who defeated Imam Shamil and his fighters who were looking to create an Islamist state. Chechen fighters were mostly Chechen men between the ages of as young as 15 to as old as 55.
I'm really wondering, though, how many people know about the Chechen War? I mean, it seems kind of like
It's an obscure one to most Americans who we asked, and many do not know.
A lot of people died, unfortunately. But I just don't know why it's not as recognized in history. But moving on, according to BBC.com, the war was from December 1994 to August 1996.
Most Chechens were Sunni Muslims, while most Russians were Eastern Orthodox Christians. Religion often plays a major role in conflict, and this is a prime example of that.
Chechnya was a Soviet Socialist Republic part of Russia and the Soviet Union until its collapse.
In November 1991, Chechnya declared independence from Russia and the Soviet Union.
On December 11th of 1994, Russian troops began to attack Chechenya's capital, Grozny, which began the First Chechen War.
On December 31st, 1994, the First Battle of Grozny was Russia's invasion and subsequent conquest of the Chechen capital. Grozny, during the early months of the war, faced heavy fighting.
Well, I'm wondering, how many people really died in the First Chechen War? Does anyone know? Is there an exact number?
I believe close
a lot
to
of people.
150,000, which is not as big as some wars, but bigger than others.
Like I'm saying, I just wonder why no one recognizes it in the history books,
Yeah.
It's kind of sadly a forgotten thing. That's why it's here on Forgotten History.
It's quite recent, actually, compared to many other wars
Reminds
that
me
happened in the past.
Reminds me somewhat of the Ukraine War. It's very similar in some ways.
People make lots of connections between those two wars about mistakes Russia is making and how it struggles against smaller fighters. Do you have anything to add, Dean?
I still think it's absurd that people as young as, the freshmen and sophomores can be fighting in the Chechen War on the Chechen side.
Very interesting.
Because as young as 15, that's absurd.
Moving on.
The Chechens were led by Dudzes Dudyav, a former Chechen Soviet politician who served as Chechen's first president and military leader. After the losses in the Chechen War, it made Russia's president, Boris Yeltsin, a very, very unpopular man. He ordered the assassination of Dudyav.
On April 21st, 1996, 4 months before the war's end, Dudyav's location was spotted by Russian reconnaissance. He was killed by 2 Russian-guided laser missiles while on the phone. In March 1996, the Chechens launched a surprise invasion of Grozny.
The Russians were doomed to lose the war from the start. It was a war launched without proper preparation, and the Russian conscripts were demoralized, as well as the Chechen guerrilla fighters regrouping.
So, the Chechen guerrilla fighters fought. It was lots of urban combat in the cities, and it was very sad that Chechnya's capital, Grozny, would eventually become the most destroyed city in the world by the Second Chechen War.
How does that even happen, man? That's kind of crazy,
They bombed hospitals, apartments, lots of civilian targets, actually, which is very sad. People draw connections, once again, to modern conflicts.
Like Ukraine?
Ukraine,
It's
Gaza,
very similar.
everything.
To continue, Chechen heavy artillery and gear such as tanks and artillery guns were mostly old Soviet gear left behind after the USSR's collapse. The reason we included this is just to give you an idea of Chechnya was not a very well-funded state.
One of the main reasons that they actually could win is Russian troops were just extremely demoralized, which is somewhat similar to British troops being demoralized in the Revolutionary War. They felt it was a war without cause, and many of them were unpaid conscripts.
In the Chechen War, though, back to that, it's just, even the Russians were using Soviet equipment, and I just think it's a little bit crazy that, because it's like 1994, 3 years after, like everyone was just kind of like a poor time for Russia and Chechnya, all these different countries after the Soviet Union, and they're all still using this old stuff. But like Sunil said, Chechens were like they had a lot of excitement and wanted to win.
Yes.
I still think like Grozny, the fact that managed to become the most destroyed city really says something about the war and just how terrible it was.
And after the war's end in 1996, just 3 years later, the Second Chechen War would begin from August 1999 to April 16th, 2009, a 10-year war, much longer than the 2-year Chechen War. In 2003, Grozny was declared the most destroyed city in the world.
Like I said, that's crazy. I don't even know how that can happen. But
basically, to summarize, the Chechen War in total, like the first and second, they were very terrible tragedies. What?
In 2009, Russia successfully seized Grozny. 134 federal soldiers, a large amount of pro-Russian militiamen, died in Grozny.
What I'm wondering is, like, it seems the war is always going back and forth with Grozny, right? Like, first one, like, 2 to 3 times, I think it was, the Russians and the Chechens trading off the capitals. And then, like, second one seems that way, too. But then they won the war capturing that, right, in the second one?
They did. So in the first Chechen War, the Chechens did win, but in the second one, the Russians won. They must have learned from their mistakes, but they didn't learn from their mistakes in Ukraine. Thank you for watching the Forgotten History podcast and the episode about the Chechen Wars.
It was a pleasure presenting history to you guys today, and look out for more of these awesome episodes soon. And
we hope to see you soon, guys.